Hey, practice owners, welcome back to another edition of Coming Back Stronger. I'm pretty excited to have our guest on today. A lot of you are going to recognize Sandy Pardue. In fact, if you're on Dental Town, you'll really recognize Sandy. And if you're in Louisiana,
Yeah, I'm in Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge. There you go. Love New Orleans, love Baton Rouge, just, love Louisiana. Quarantined at home, I guess. Are you at the office or home?
Actually, I'm in the office.
All right.
Coming back this week. Yes.
Well, and that's kind of what we're here to talk about again. We really started these. We've got tremendous viewership. So I had people say, as long as people are watching, we'll keep doing them.
That's right.
Sandy and I were talking beforehand about the kind of people that we look for, and I'm looking for people who have a lot of smart things to say to practice owners right now. And so, if you would kind of explain who you are, where you come from. I know again you're big on my buddy Howard's on Dental Town, and you consulted for a long time, have a very strong following, and we're hoping to get you to share maybe some tactical hands-on things that practice owners who are watching as we start to open up, start to get back in, might not have thought of, might not be doing that they should be, and really kind of dive into that. So
okay. Well, I'm excited to be here. This is
awesome.
Great. And I'm excited that dentistry is on its way to getting back to normal. And it is. And I've talked to clients this week, and we're really excited about what we're hearing and seeing. So that's a good thing. So I've been consulting for a long time. I actually started in the early 90s. I started lecturing and helping dental practices. And so I have been doing it since then, and lectured at most major meetings, been published in most major mags. And I enjoy helping people. I do a lot of lectures around the country. I even do my own lectures on a scheduling academy that we're most known for. We have a reputation of being the systems guru. So we started with systems. We were talking about things back in the mid-'80s in the dental practice that I managed. That was pretty impressive, actually. A solo doctor back then doing 1.2 million in the mid-'80s and no marketing ever. And so we had the things that people get excited about now, like statistics, keeping statistics. We were already doing that. Recording phone calls, we were doing that in the 80s. And so we came up with a lot of material. We found out why patients don't come, why they don't keep their appointments. I mean, we started putting the structure in and doing it way back then. So moving forward to now, these practices that are ready to open and go in, some of them are scared. Okay, the team members don't want to come back. Some are coming back and they're ready to go. So there's a variation, and it's every practice is different. The most important thing for practice owners and managers that are listening right now, the most important thing is that you have to think about is this will pass. This is not permanent. Okay, number one. Number two is patients need you. People have teeth. Now, it was already a problem. We had less than half the people going to the dentist before COVID-19. And now we have all these people that while you were closed, they need to get in. But you were closed, so you lost a lot of income. And I hear people talking about 2020, it's going to be terrible. Our production and collections is going to be down. And, I'll say that yes, in some practices it will, but I'm already seeing some practices that we work with, they're coming in and taking a look at the patients that have unscheduled treatment, the people that were already on their scheduled and committed, and looking at those people and prioritizing and going, okay. So rather than filling the day without a production goal in mind, actually have a production goal. It may be different from the one that you had pre-COVID-19. So take a look at it, because you have so many people needing to get in. This has always been a problem with dental practices. One of the first things that as a consultant that we do going into practices, we do a couple of things. We go right to your computer and we pull an unscheduled treatment report. And it's rare that we see one with less than $500,000 in treatment needing to be done. We go over and we look at your recall, and we find thousands of people in some practices that haven't been in and need to come in. And I'm not talking about your patients that want to come every 6 months that you can't keep away. I'm talking about the people that haven't been in 18 months or 2 years or 3 years. Listen, that's one of the biggest problems, patient retention in practices. And right now there's going to be a lot of misplaced patients. I'll tell you myself, even from my hairdresser, you know what? I'm a misplaced customer with my hairdresser.
Yep.
There's been no communication. So guess what?
Huh.
I went and got a haircut and I found someone new.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a lot of that. So communication is going to be key. The first thing you want to do is find out, like, if you want to feel good about things, because I see dentists on Facebook going, oh, where patients aren't going to want to come. No one's going to want dentistry. And that's bull. That's like not the case. So if you think that is going to happen in your practice, go do what I said. Pull those reports, a recall report, go back 3 years. Go your unscheduled treatment, go back 12 months, go back 13, 14 months. You're going to say, wow, we have a lot of people that need to get in. Now, here's the thing. If you're not communicating with these people, they're going to feel like maybe they need to go see somebody else. So you need to be reaching out to them, whether it's via text, whether it's a letter, whether it's an old-fashioned pick up the phone and give them a call. And make sure that your team have the verbal skills. So you want to sit down with them, and there's a lot of information flying around right now, especially on Facebook. And it's a lot of good information, actually. But here's the problem. People hear it and they don't type it up and save it. And that needs to happen. So practices need to be, okay, that's a great idea. Let's make a policy from that. So when I was talking about structure earlier, that's one of the first things we do when we go in is there's about 42 practice management systems in every practice. And you need to have those systems in writing, because there's one very important word that every person that owns a practice needs to know and remember. And that word is consistency. You have to have consistency in your practice in order to have predictability. So if you want predictable days, you have to have consistent actions by your team. And you're only going to get that if you have things in writing, like being from the South, recipes, right? We talk a lot about recipes, practice management recipe. So what's your recipe for getting patients back? What's your recipe for filling up the schedule and keeping it to an exact goal? So you'll go through and you'll see that some patients, maybe you don't want to fill the day up with ops and small procedures. You want to look for those people that need to come in that were already committed for implants or crown and bridge. And you want to give them a call, and you want to say something like, we were going through the patient records and we want to see which patients are our priority patients. And doctor said that you were, and I'm calling to get you scheduled. And so now that patient's thinking, oh, so doctor thinks I'm a priority. And so, you want to get those patients, and that it'll work. It works. Okay. We know that works. And patients are like, yeah, okay, well, I'll come in. So it's building the day with a goal in mind, having your team know exactly what your expectations are, communicating them. And now I want to talk about something really important.
Okay.
I mentioned the recall report. So I think now more than ever, reactivation is going to be key. That's a topic that I talk a lot about, and get a lot of dental teams really putting a policy in and making that part a yearly reactivation project, actually. And normally I would tell people that January is the best time to do this, but I'm saying right now I would start a reactivation project. And again, what I'm about to say, it's a recipe and it works. And you can plan on getting 9 to 19% of your patients back without a phone call. So what you want to do is pull a report, go back 3 years. Go back 3 years, find out who has not been in 6 months to 3 years, okay?
Okay. And
these are people that need to come back for hygiene. So you're going to go ahead and communicate with them. Now, I've done a lot of research on this. A lot of practices are going more to emailing and texting. Now, email is not good because only 28% of emails are ever opened. Okay, so you know how you get your inbox is filled with from the same person all the time because they know that stat. They know they have to keep putting it in front of you for you to actually maybe open one. Now, texting works better than email. I'll say that. And every practice listening should be set up with texting. And surprisingly, there are still some not. So if you're a practice listening and you don't have the ability to text your patients, you need to get that done. But for the reactivation project, what we found works best, and I thought this would be best, but I still kept doing my research and keeping my statistics. And then we start seeing that retention in practices are doing this. It's declining. Since more and more people have been texting and emailing instead of sending those physical cards. Okay, I can't hold that back from people. It's not the cool thing to say anymore. It's not the cool thing to say. The cool thing to say is text everybody and life will be grand. But I know I have the stats from all over the country for years. So what I recommend is that you do phone calls, you do texting, you do emails, and for reactivation, you send the old-fashioned cards. And that way you're hitting everybody. If text works better for one group of your patients, great, you're texting. If email works best for some, you're hitting every one of these groups. So what we found is when you send these cards, and we did a lot of research on the color actually, and we kept the statistics all over the country. I've worked with over 600 practices, so we keep looking at this. And so we tried canary yellow, we tried light blue, we tried dark blue, we tried goldenrod, we tried white, we tried pink. But the color that worked the best was the highlighter green color. Without a doubt, that color gets the best results.
Okay.
And you just put your message on there that you miss seeing them in the office and it's time to come back. And if you mail that card for 2 months in a row to the same people, some of our clients will mail it 3 months in a row, you start to see a lot happening. Now, one very important thing about mailing this card that an email will not do, a text will not do, phones, nothing will do, is if you put return service requested on the card, you'll get their new address. And we all know how important it is to keep up with contact information for our patients. So then some people will say, but Sandy, we get a card back anyway, but it doesn't have their new address on it. So this is important. Okay. This is very
okay.
And
I didn't know that.
Most people don't. And so what you're doing here, again, yeah, you'll have to spend some money on postage, but they're going to have to touch it when they get it out the mailbox. And it works. So the statistic we see is 9 to 19%. And what it's doing is cleaning out your files. You're finding out who died, who moved to another state, who changed dentist, and then you're going to get people that's going to see it and they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call you. And so it works really well. So that's what I think.
Can I ask you a quick question about, so when you do this recall, and maybe here's sort of your thoughts on this. You had said you see practices whose production is going up. And I see that. In fact, I'm on a couple different panels, and so my job is to report on trends in industry. And the first thing people want to know is, are patients coming back? And I can say unequivocally, patients are coming back.
Yeah.
I've gotten probably 24 emails this week from docs who said, I'm up. I'm higher than my production is higher than it was. I would do calling around. So I found 2 different things. I want to get your opinion on those as it relates to right now's sort of recall and then getting your system in place. But I see 2 kinds of docs. One is they waited until they got the all clear and they started Monday, and I actually had somebody come in and say, oh, thank goodness we can come back. We're going to start calling patients right away on Monday morning. Well, they should have been calling patients 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it didn't occur. And I think that's a person who is trying to just get back to where they were. And I don't think that's possible. I think you have to come into this thinking, I've got to start doing something different and maybe better. And what made me think of that was when you had said how you're treatment planning, how you're reaching out. So the docs who are the other side who said, you know, we're way up, I called and I would say, okay, can you kind of tell me what you're doing? And they would say something you just said a while ago. They would say, I'm reaching out, I'm going to my untreated treatment plans or unscheduled treatment plans, and I'm cherry picking. I'm looking for a patient who maybe should have been in between March and May for hygiene, didn't come in, but 2 years ago I treatment planned 3 crowns and we've done 1. And so you're calling and saying, listen, we want to make sure we get you in
Doctor was going through those records.
I love, what did you say? Priority. We think you're a priority. That's genius.
Yeah.
So,
using that word priority. Yeah.
Those are the ones who are, I think, just asking what you see. Those are the ones I think who know they've got to do something different. And then they've got to start to reach out and start recalling and saying, listen, I probably have a month or 2 to kind of get myself stabilized. Maybe I need to do, 3 months or 4 months worth of hygiene in a month, but I got to really do it in a smart way to get those untreated or unscheduled treatment plans. But then go ahead and lay the groundwork for my recall system, a new recall system. So if you start mailing today, you'll see results a month from now or 2 months from now.
Yeah.
So
and the secret to that is doing it this is called a reactivation project.
Okay.
And so what you want to do is you want to take people that haven't been in like 7 months and longer and go back 3 years.
Okay.
See, those people that haven't been in 2 years, guess what? Those are the ones that need the work. The people that come every 6 months, they don't need the work. So March was kind of a wash, right? Well, it was a wash in hygiene. So people are like, oh, they're freaking out about September. I don't believe in Sucktember. I never have. The practice where I am from, we didn't ever have Sucktember. And that practice is still around, and there's no such thing as Sucktember. So Sucktember is just because people didn't do what they should have done in August. I really believe that.
Yeah. Well, it's seasonal. It's, in the practice ownership world, you think of it as seasonal, and there are transitions, and, kids are going back to school. So parents are saying, oh, thank goodness, that's done. And, so we just kind of coast, and then we get back to business in October.
But
and that's what I've always heard.
One word will always, I have a few favorite words. So this one is abundance. When you have an abundance of anything, life is easier. If you have an abundance of money, and if you're a dentist, if you have an abundance of patience, right? It's really, and then what people tend to do is, there's another word. There's one more word that I love. It's called urgency. In the dental practice, it's like your scheduler, if your scheduler doesn't know that word. In fact, I think dentists should go over the definition of urgency in a team meeting, because when that open time on the schedule is not normal. So if somebody falls off, well, there has to be the urgency to fill it. And so all of these things, some people are just kind of sitting around waiting for things to happen in their practice, and some are proactive. And so the ones that are proactive are the ones that you're describing. They're proactive.
And now's not the time. So, as sort of with the business background, and that's what I get asked about a lot. I've probably spoken, I don't even know how many times in the past. Sandy, I don't know how many interviews I've done in the past 8 weeks, 6 weeks. It's a ton.
Yeah.
But so what I have people reaching out for, I call it sort of the cadence of your practice. And right now it's blown out of the water. And if you're, like you said, if you're waiting for something to happen, like you've done for the past 20 years, it happened because, every week was kind of the same. You had a Sucktember, which I'm going to use.
Maybe you were lucky some months.
Yeah, I'm going to use Sucktember, by the way, and I'm going to give you credit every time I say that. It's funny. Like we were talking about Linda Miles earlier. I use Linda has the Linda-isms, and she'll say, and I bet I've said this 100 times in the last 3 months about change. You've got to get used to the idea of change at least through the end of the year. And Linda says, you know, the only people who like change are babies in wet diapers.
Right. Yeah, I've seen
So
that quote.
I give her every credit. So you're the Sucktember.
Well, I didn't coin that word.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know who did, but you see it a lot on Dental Town. Like, oh, Sucktember. Well, then you want every month to be Rocktober. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't coin that either, but anybody that's on Facebook or Dental Town knows Maudie. Okay. He's a dentist. Maudie, he's hilarious. Well, he's the one that taught me Rocktober.
Rocktober. Okay.
Yes. So it's just a matter, it's a mindset. And hopefully the listeners have a team that's going to get in there and do what needs to get done. But we need direction from the leaders. So the dentist needs to go in and lay out those expectations and provide tools and put things in writing. You know, people are like, Sandy, how do you start with these systems? How do you do this? And I'll tell you, you know, you start and what is a system? You know, some people are confused about what that is. A system is not an SOP. You know, a system is part of an SOP, but you know, you've got these recipes that go into these different positions in your practice, and you start accumulating them. And before you know it, now you've got systems and you've got predictability because people are going to be doing it the same. You replace somebody, and you know, the way dentistry is now, a new person comes to work up front, and whatever they did at the last office is what's now your system in your office. And that's insane. You find out what works well and you keep it consistent. And guess what? You're not going to be spending time fixing things.
Especially now. So let me ask you this. What, you know, again, back to the two types of practice owners. And I think you have to be, I love your word urgency. I mean, right now, I think if patients feel an urgency and your team feels an urgency, I mean, you've got to catch up, and there's an urgency in cash flow. I mean, whether you know it or not, or have realized it or not, you had zero revenue. And even if you did a PPP loan, you know, there's going to be a gap you have to jump over.
And that 8 weeks is going to go very fast.
Yes. Well, some people are halfway through it before they even, you know, open the door. So systems, what, how many did you say you have a list?
Well, 42 different systems. So there's like 42 different systems, and people that are listening, well, they have these systems, whether they realize it or not. Okay. They have these systems.
Okay.
And they might not have ever named them, and that's the problem, you know, so that's why dentists are so stressed.
So here's how we do things, and I love what you said. Yeah. When you bring somebody in, so suddenly you have a patchwork. Our hygiene systems are, you know, Jane, who came from this doctor's office, and our front office system is from whoever brought it, and they cobbled them all together, and this is our practice. And I guess the message might be, now is the time to sweep a lot of that away and say, okay, here's how we do it.
That way you have everybody saying the same things, doing the same things. You're not training someone to be the receptionist. That's what I see a lot. Is like maybe a doctor over a 20-year period might have 4 receptionists or 5, or some practices even more. And they're having to train every single time.
So what are let's pick 3. What are 3 systems that a practice owner who's a dentist who really just wants to see patients, but listens to this and says, all right, there might be a little more work I need to do to get this thing open. What are maybe 3 systems that are going to be different, that are critical, that you've done for years and weren't a big deal, but now going forward, they're just going to be a big deal?
I think new patient process is definitely going to be one. You know, your new patient process, your patient information updates will be another one. And I think more people are going to be moving towards statements, not mailing statements, but sending them electronically. I think that's going to be one. I heard somebody earlier talking about phone calls, not, you know, going to texting instead of phone calls. And I think that's practice suicide, basically. Don't do that. You know, the world goes off of communication, right? It's like, and in dentistry, no practice has patients lined up around the building waiting to get in. And, you know, just show me one. I haven't seen one yet. And so we're not like an Elton John concert. And so less than half the people go to the dentist. I
think it's a generational thing. I mean, just my observation. I we were talking earlier about, I have 5 kids. They're scattered all over the world. I kind of tease and say I own 5 millennials, and my daughter, love her to death, but I will text her, or I'll try to call her, and she'll text me back and say, "Hey, what's up?" Now, I know she has the phone in her hand and she can answer it just as easily, but they don't like talking on the phone. They want to text.
I have a daughter too.
I'm the opposite. Yeah. I don't know what that is. It used to make me mad. And then I realized everybody's kids do the same thing. That's how they communicate. But if you're my vintage, I kind of want to talk to somebody. I have 3 questions and I want to get them all answered right now, and we move on our way. So maybe the idea is it's not an all or nothing, one size fits all. Let's just switch over and text.
Well, just look at the results. I'm result driven, so I like to look at the results. So
you're going to turn off a lot of patients like me.
Yeah. So there's a reason why some practices have $1 million in unscheduled treatment, and why some have 85% acceptance, and so there's a reason. And then there's a reason why some paid practices are retaining 85% and some are retaining 30 and 40%. Well, I started looking at those numbers because I was keeping statistics before it was cool to keep statistics. Okay. Mm-hmm. Back in the 80s, literally keeping tallies and putting graph sheets with rulers and drawing lines, and we were tracking all this stuff. And the practice was a huge practice. So 18 team members. I mean, it was, a lot going on back then. So we had, and then people came from around the world to see us. So we were watching their practices, and that's how all this grew. But I'm going to tell you that when you have good communication skills and someone is at the front with good communication skills, you're going to sell more dentistry. You're going to collect more money. Duh. Yep. And it can't be done through a text. Now, if we were selling a product like an iPhone or something like that, you could do everything via text. Mm-hmm. I forgot what I was buying. I'm getting a new puppy, so I'm buying all these things.
Oh.
Like going through the internet, and I was like, what's it like to have a company? Like, I had a question. Couldn't get a question answered. Like, why can't I get a question answered? What's it like to have a company that you don't have to communicate? So people need to realize dentistry is not that profession or service. No matter what they learned in dental school, people get out of dental school and, okay, where's the patients? It's not that way. People don't want dentistry. They don't understand. Some people do, of course. It's not 100%, but most people aren't lined up saying, please give me a root canal. Most are they don't understand. My gums are bleeding for 5 years, but that's okay because they really don't hurt. I guess I can go a little longer. We have all of that to deal with. You see, those objections to handle.
You can't, I'm an Amazon fan. And Amazon is back, thank goodness. I can buy a $4 item and it'll show up tomorrow on my front doorstep, on a whim. And if I don't like it, I can take it back to Kohl's and, just return it. And it shows, the credit shows up on my card by Saturday morning. So, but you can't one click and buy dentistry. It doesn't work that way. And I think you just hit a great point there. You can't treat dentistry like that. One click, bought it and move on. You can't communicate that way. It's very personal. In fact, somebody told me one time that it was an observation. I think they were cutting my hair or something. They said there are very few professions where you touch your customer. And, that's one, you can't cut my hair without touching me. Dentistry, you have that kind of intimacy, and people, I think, expect that no matter who they are.
Yeah. So, I think it's something to think about. It's like, so the younger dentists coming in, I've had conversations with them because that's usually, I work with, all practices, but I have a lot of dentists in their 30s and 40s, and I think that the ones that after they've been in for a little while, they realize, hey, I better learn more about how to communicate and how to handle these objections that patients have. And those are the ones that are going to increase their treatment acceptance.
Awesome. So I'm noticing our time. Want to make sure we get in it's classic practice resources. How would somebody get in touch with you? Like I said, I know you're all over Dentaltown, Facebook. You know, if you're a friend of Monty, or you know, you're a friend of mine. But how would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted a little bit more information or maybe some resources and say, hey, Sandy, I like what you said, but how do I do that? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, they can go to classicpractice.com.
Okay.
And also they can email me, and that's Sandy with a Y, SANDY at classicpractice.com.
Okay.
I have a private Facebook group called Dental Gumbo. So doctors are welcome to join Dental Gumbo. And yeah.
I think I'm part of that because, you know, I just like gumbo. And
everybody does.
well, so how far are you from New Orleans?
1 hour.
1 hour. I was thinking it was a short drive.
Yeah, like 60 miles from my
That's
house.
we try to do New Orleans about once a year, maybe twice. Again, now that kids are gone, we can just decide to go for the weekend, and you know, we can get away with that. So it's one of our favorite things. Well, Sandy, any parting thoughts? Anything like one big takeaway message you'd like to share with, you know, docs who are struggling, finally getting back, excited, but then they come home and they're worn out. And this is the first week for a lot. And I guarantee you, there's, you know, Friday is going to be, you know, there's going to be a lot of relaxing, however you do that today. So any kind of big takeaway?
Well, sure. Yeah, I think first off, what they have to remember is this is temporary.
Right.
Then the next thing is organize as you cope. Okay, as you organize as you get through this time. And what I mean is, earlier I mentioned writing things up. So that's what you want to do. You know, oh, that's a good verbal skill. Let's type that up.
Okay.
And then remember that the more you call, the more patients you send recall cards to and you make calls, the more activity you're going to have in your practice. So if you just sit there and wait, nothing's going to happen. So just go get them. This is temporary, and you can have the practice that you want. You just have to get your team together, rally up the troops, and communicate with your patients. And stay positive. That's another thing. Stay positive, and make sure you go over with your team that they need to stay positive when they're communicating. And don't say things like, I really think we should have been home longer, or I don't feel safe, and things like that. And you'll be fine. Yeah. I can't wait to hear all the good stories in another month or two.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're going to be, but I think something you said really resonated with me. It won't come to you. You said, go out and get it. I mean, you've got to go. It's like any business. Yeah. And if you didn't, as a practice owner, if you didn't realize that you owned a business, which a lot of dentists have gotten in the habit of just letting somebody else take care of this stuff, and it's comfortable, they know it now. And you have to go get, kind of like coming out of dental school. You know, you can sit back and wait, and it's not going to happen, or you can go get it. And what do you know? You know, you built a practice.
Yeah, and this is the time, you know, like I said, if you come out of this, you know, it's going to be slow right now. Organize as you're trying to get through this, coping through, you know, and then go ahead and get your practice in order right now.
Well, Sandy, that's why you're one of the biggest, you know, the stars of Dentaltown. And you do, again, Dentaltown is kind of your place. You're very generous with your time, with advice. You know, the interesting thing is, you know, people can pay a lot of money for consultants, or they can sort of reach out to Sandy and get little tidbits, and, you know, try to do it yourself. Or I'm sure you always love new clients.
A lot of people, and I love it. Yeah.
And it's done well for you for a long time. So, you know, whatever recipe you have there, it's working.
Yes.
Well, Sandy, we appreciate you coming on today.
Okay.
And practice owners, if you have any trouble reaching out to Sandy, just, you know, email me or the Profitable Dentist. We'll make sure you're connected. If you have any questions and, you know, you can't get through, or, you know, whatever troubles there might be, we'll make sure that you guys are put together. So with that, we're going to wrap up another edition of Coming Back Stronger. Sandy Pardue, Classic Practice Resources. Sandy, I'm glad to see you're back. You know, people are starting to get out of the house and go back to the office.
That's it. I did hear this morning that pajama sales are up 130%.
Are they? I can believe that. My wife works at home, and she said I heard her on the phone. She works for a big health insurance company, and I heard her saying to somebody, she said, I haven't worn pants that buttoned for 6 weeks now.
Yeah.
And, you know, so a lot's going to change. And I think the people who, you know, tend to make the most out of things can find a lot of opportunities today. So,
Yeah.
Sandy, I appreciate it. And practice owners, until next time, thanks for tuning in.
Bye.